Hi there, Honkai kittens. Finally, I'm starting off with the Honkai Star Rail content. Hopefully you guys like it and let me know what you want to see next in the comments. But yeah, anyways, in this video, we're going to be comparing the three banners we have in this period right now, 1.5. First of all, we have Huohuo, we have silverwolf, and finally we have Argenti. We're going to be going through them, seeing their pros, cons, and which ones you should maybe pull for. So yeah, let's begin. Alright, so first of all, starting off with Huohuo. She's the one in the current banner right now, a new 5-star Wind Abundance character. Generally, Huohuo is going to be a healer slash like sustain in the team. She's also going to be buffing your team a little bit, which is pretty good. Her elemental skill is going to be able to do AoE healing to your team and also dispel debuffs. And that's very good. She's going to be able to do a lot of healing, and that's also going to be AoE. We don't have many characters who can do that in the game right now, and that's a necessary thing to have, at least one character. And then her elemental burst is going to regenerate energy for your team, and then also buff their attack by a lot. So obviously that's a very good support elemental burst too. So Huohuo as a whole is going to be able to give you healing, energy, and also attack bonuses to your team. All of these being in one character is honestly super huge. That's why I think she's probably one of the best supports in the game right now. Literally one of the best characters. I would say she's probably top 5 in my opinion. And depending on whether or not you already have a good 5-star sustain on your team, she might honestly be a must pull. By a good 5-star sustain, I mean like Lucia or Bailu or whatever. If you already have one of those, her value kind of drops in my opinion, even though she's better than them, I would say, if you want to like compare her toe to toe. But should you pull for her? I don't know. But if you don't have a good 5-star sustain, I would say Huohuo is definitely a must pull. You need at least one of them on your account. Huohuo is probably the best right now, so it's a golden opportunity because you're getting a very good amount of healing that's going to sustain most teams, and you're also getting energy regen, which is pretty important in Honkai. There are not many like sources of energy regen in Honkai, as in like Genshin and stuff like that. So any character who gives you energy regen is also pretty good, and also a good attack buff, which is also pretty good. The only problem I might see with Huohuo right now is not really a problem with her, to be honest, but with her banner. She has very bad 4-stars. We have Dan Hank, Arlen, and Seval. None of them are really like particularly good 4-stars for their roles, except for maybe like Seval. She can be usable, but Arlen and Dan Hank are not really characters you want to be using. That's my only problem with her banners, to be honest. If you're like free to play, usually you'd want to get even like some good 4-stars when you're pulling for a character, and when none of them are usable like that, it's kind of a bummer. If you're getting like multiple copies of them and then just throw them away, that's not good, especially if you're like a low spender or free to play. You'd usually want to take advantage even of the 4-stars on a banner. But with that being said though, I still think Huohuo is very good on her own, to the point where if you don't really have a good sustain on your team, you should still pull for her even though you're going to be wasting like the 4-stars. Having a good sustain is going to be very important, and she's one of the best sustains in the game, so even with bad 4-stars, I still think she's worth it. Now moving on to Silverwolf, I think a lot of people already, know what's going on with Silverwolf. She's also one of the best supports in the game. She's a little bit different than Huohuo. She's more of like an offensive support. She applies like debuffs on enemies and allows you to do more damage with her main DPSs. And she's very good at that. She has a thing where she applies weaknesses to enemies, and that's going to allow you to have weakness breaks with characters with even like different elements. And obviously that's very good, especially if you don't have many characters built. And I don't think anyone has that many characters like built anyways, especially as like main DPSs. Usually you're gonna have like 2, 3, stuff like that, but not like the whole elements. So she's always gonna be very good, at least in that regard, where she's gonna add a weakness to the enemy. So even if your main DPS is a different element where the enemy is not weak to, you might have a chance to apply weakness break. Also from her elemental burst, she's gonna be able to reduce the defense of enemies. That's also very good. It just means a lot more damage. And also she's gonna be able to reduce the attack of the enemies, the defense, and their speed from her passive. That's very good, and it's also rare to see that in the game, at least at this point right now. So that makes Silverwolf one of the best supports in the game too. She might excel in some teams, like specifically like Mono Quantum and stuff like that, but even as a general support for your account, she's probably going to be good in most teams. Just the debuffs on the enemies alone is going to be very great. She's going to allow you to do like much more damage. Whoever your main DPS is, they're going to do more damage, and she's also going to allow them to, apply weakness breaks on enemies that don't have their elements as a weakness, and that's going to generally make your main DPS much more flexible and usable in a lot of cases. Some of my problems with Silverwolf, they're not really big problems, but they're things like that's worth mentioning. First thing is she's kind of like single target focused. I mean, she was able to do that to like multiple targets. She's just gonna be broken. I mean, she's broken now, but like you get what I mean. But yeah, still she's gonna be like very single target focused. So it's not like she's gonna be able to, you know, do much when there are like multiple enemies around. Your main DPS is not gonna be able to like break all their weaknesses and stuff like that. Even their buffs are gonna be applied to only one character. So yeah, that's a point. It's not really a huge deal, but you know, it's worth mentioning. She's not really gonna make like any character usable anywhere, like literally. In some cases, she might really not be able to, you know, make your main DPS usable, even though she's gonna be trying to apply like the weakness element and stuff like that. She's gonna be good in like mono teams where you don't really have many elements, but in some teams where you have like different elements, she might apply like the wrong element to the enemy and you're gonna have to reset and stuff like that, which might be a problem. Not really a big problem, but it's, you know, worth considering. I see a lot of people say she's gonna make any DPS usable anywhere. That's not really literally the case. That's true for the most part, but sometimes it might not be. She has a lot of like broken teams like Mono Quantum, for example, or stuff like that. That's gonna require her to work, and that's like one of the best teams in the game, but she still has like limits on, you know, making teams usable. That's all I'm trying to say. With that being said though, she's still like an S tier character, one of the best supports in the game. So yeah. And then finally we have Argenti. Is going to be upcoming in the next banner. He's going to be a physical erudition character. His kit is going to be very simple, really. His skill is going to be dealing AoE physical damage to enemies. Same thing with his elemental burst. It's going to have two different costs, 90 and 180, which is huge. But it's pretty much the same thing. It's just going to be dealing AoE physical damage to enemies. He's also going to be able to gain some energy from his passive and also some crit rate. Other than that, he's just, you know, an AoE physical damage character. Obviously, he's going to be very, very good against like multiple enemies. So if you have like multiple enemies content, which we might be seeing quite a lot right now, to be honest. It's been a while since we've seen like, you know, single enemies in any content right now. So it seems like the game is leaning more towards, you know, like multiple target enemies. And he's going to be very good at that. He's going to be dealing damage to all of them, which is super good. Obviously the only problem with him is going to be single target enemies. His damage is not really going to be like quite super good against them. It's going to be acceptable, but not really, you know, something special. Definitely not something you'd want to rely on. So yeah, when there are not really many enemies around, his DPS is definitely not going to be, you know, top tier. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's really a pretty simple character. Just, you know, physical AoE main DPS. He's going to excel in some scenarios, maybe not so much in some scenarios. Generally speaking, as a whole character, I don't think he's like that special. I don't think it's bad. He's definitely going to be fine and usable, but you know, it's nothing really special, especially if you have like characters like Xing Liu, for example, or Blade or whatever. If you're going to pull for a main DPS, I honestly would prefer them much more than him, but if you like him, he's definitely usable and calm too. Alright, now for the final thoughts. How should you wish and choose between these characters? So if I have to give a ranking, I'm gonna start with Huohuo, and that's only if you don't have a good sustain on your account. To be honest, you usually need two, so even if you have a good 5-star sustain, you can actually pull her, and I would say she's gonna be worth it too. But if you don't have any at this point, I would say Huohuo is kind of a must pull, to be honest. She's one of the best sustains on the game right now, and if you need one, then she's definitely the one to go for. If you have like Lucia, for example, or Bailu already, you might skip her, even though you're gonna need two sustains because you're gonna need two teams, obviously. But you might be able to manage with like a 4-star on the other team, like Natasha, for example, or something like that. But yeah, I repeat, if you don't have a good sustain at all on your team, like a 5-star sustain, in that case, I would say she's definitely necessary. Like she's a must pull, like actually a must pull. The game is gonna be long for you if you don't have a good sustain on your account. Second of all, I would say silverwolf. Obviously she's a very good support. She's gonna allow you to do more damage, open up a lot of like team possibilities, especially if you're like free to play or low spender, you don't have many characters. She's gonna allow you to pass through some content without building new characters. Again, I repeat, don't like overestimate that. It's not like she's gonna make any team usable anywhere, but as I said, in a lot of cases, she's gonna allow you to use your main DPS in places where he shouldn't really be able to be used. And also, she's a very good buffer as a whole. The defense shred, the attack debuffs the enemies and stuff like that, that's always pretty good. So if you already have a good sustain on your team and you just need a support, in that case, I would say silverwolf is probably the one to go for. And then finally, we have Argenti. I mean, I'm not really saying he's bad or anything like that, don't get me wrong, but compared to these two characters, they're just like S tier characters, so it's hard to really recommend going for Argenti over them. In case you really don't have any like carries or main DPSs on your account, like at all, in that case, you might go Argenti, but I honestly still don't recommend it. You can probably manage with any like 4-star carries up until then, especially if you have like good supports and sustains mains like Silverwolf and Huohuo and stuff like that. And then we're probably gonna have upcoming, new DPSs that you can pull for in the future. And some of them might be even better than Argenti. So yeah, I don't really recommend pulling for him unless you need a DPS. Even then, he's not really the one like you want to choose and go for. But hey, if you need a DPS right now and you like him, then go for it. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a like to support the Honkai content if you want to see more, and see you guys in the next video. Peace.